chapel every week. So tonight we have our dating talk, and we have an outside speaker that we're very excited about.
Yeah, his name is Andrew Werkheiser, if you guys want to give him a round of applause. And then Father Brian, if you want to come pray over him.
All right, we're going to pray over him, and I ask that you also pray over Andrew. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we give you thanks for bringing us together this evening. We give you thanks for the work that you're doing in all of our lives. We give you thanks for the graces and the strength that you give us to navigate the stuff of life, and for being able to do it in community. We ask that you bless Andrew. Speak your words through him. Give him your strength, your grace, that he may lead us in worship of you and lead us in the discussion of relationships. We ask that you bless him in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
They told me I could take it off, so. All right. How are you guys doing? How many of you are freshmen in here tonight? Quite a bit. What about, how many of you are Catholic? Cool. Awesome. So I am a lifelong Catholic. Didn't have a choice, if you would say, growing up, but ended up falling in love with it, and it's been a major part of my life. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So my one ask, and when I do things like this, is very simple. Open your hearts and take it with you. And I don't mean that everything I say tonight is going to impact your life in a profound way or be something magical that makes you walk out of here and do something incredible. But when you're put in situations like this where someone has been offered a gift in their life to live through something or do something that changed their life and their outlook on it, and allowed them to share that with you, always take that opportunity to take it with you, because it means nothing at the end of the day. It means nothing inside this incredible building, this incredible opportunity that you guys have here, unless you take it across the threshold. So that mission and that message has to be carried out across those doors. Otherwise, it does nothing but fill your soul up, which is important, and that's incredible. BT, go Titans. Yes. Sorry. Very ADD as well, so that's going to happen a lot. But it's crucial. You guys have to take it with you and spread that. That's the point of this. That's the reason that we're allowed and encouraged to do things like this in the Catholic Church. So, why am I here? Honestly, my first excitement from being asked to come here was Cane's Chicken. I'm just going to be real about that. I know it's not God's chicken, but oh man, that is good stuff. Stopped on the way here. There was 20 cars in line, I feel like, but it didn't matter. I was going to do everything I could. But it's dating, actually, is why I'm here, which is definitely not as good as the chicken a lot of times. So, who am I? My name is Andrew Werkheiser. I was born and raised in Atlanta, grew up in Roswell most of my life, went to Queen of Angels, Blessed Trinity, and which is Catholic school, Catholic high school, so I was lucky enough to go through a lot of what would prepare me for life, and was able to embrace a lot of things. And on the topic of dating and what all that entails, I made a decision early on, and this is nothing against anything that you have made or may make in the future, but I made a decision early on to wait until marriage. And it was something that kind of struck home with me. It was something that I wanted to achieve. And surprisingly, throughout my college experience, where I thought I would get the most flack or the most heat from that, especially being in a fraternity and all those other college things that I got involved with, I thought it would backfire on me a little bit. But every time it was met with respect, I have to say honestly that it was met with respect from my peers, and it was something I was open about, and I think that that's a crucial piece. If you make a choice like that, whether it's faith-based or that specifically, you have to be proud of it, you have to support it, because if you don't, there's nothing to stand on, and there's 1,000 other things that people can can say about it. So that was something, like I said, that was important to me growing up, and it was something that I wanted to do. Whether it was the fear of God struck in me from my mother, or what I learned in school, I don't know, but it was something that I became very comfortable with. So I shouldn't tell you this, but I was about to go to Clemson, and I've been a UGA fan my whole life, so just don't hold it against me, but it was where I felt comfortable. I really liked it. However, Mercer knocked on my door. I had never heard of Mercer. I had never heard of Macon, and it is quite a cultural place down there that is filled with many ghettos and gangs when I started going there, and later that would impact me in an incredible way. But they offered me a full ride, so I thought, I can go there for a semester for free, and if it doesn't work out, I can always go somewhere else. I need to at least give it a shot, because clearly there's something here, some kind of message, something telling me I need to give this a shot. So I did, and I fell in love with it. It was incredible. It's an incredible university. I packed my bags and headed on down to Macon. Left my girlfriend at the time. We were together, but I don't know, I think I had a type. A lot of them looked like that. And went on down to Macon. We stayed together. And what I very quickly realized was something that could be even more scary sometimes, was I was surrounded by Protestants and Baptists. Because Mercer is inherently a Baptist university. Actually, fun fact, they were mostly funded by Baptists until they decided, and they acted all courageous about it, but I think it was a little more political than that. They decided to back a LGBTQ program that the students had put together, and so then the Baptists decided to pull their funding out. And I do respect the university for making that decision to support their students. It's an important piece of being a university, because your students are what pays the bill and are there every day. So being thrown into this, it was an incredible and interesting experience for me, because it was very heavily focused on that still. Even though they had lost funding and they hadn't had scholarships that they had in the past, it was still something that was a big focus for them. So we still had to take religious courses down there, so Old Testament, New Testament, whatever it may be, and put into scenarios and scenes with teachers that could be quite interesting when you're trying to pass a class. And one professor, for example, said he wanted to drive a truck through what the Catholic Church had built over the years. Another teacher who asked if what we thought happened to babies or people that didn't know God when they died. And I was the first one to be asked about it, because they thought that, I guess I would say they go to hell, but that's not the case. They go to heaven. If you don't have the chance to know him, then there's nothing against that individual. So I was challenged over and over and over again, being surrounded by a completely different community than what I was used to. I was used to a massive support base and a massive piece of me, and I was comfortable there. And it really changed going down there. But again, I think the key for me was being stern and being strict in what I believed, and not being afraid to share that with people. So I think another lesson I learned down there, which is crucial, is each and every second of every day, the majority of the world will try to get you to be someone else. And they will try to tell you what you should be like, or tell you what you should believe in, or whatever it may be, especially nowadays with the election going on and everything else. It gets very complicated, and there's so many ideas and so many ideologies that are thrown at you. It can be hard to sift through what is true and what is right. But if you remember your base, and if you remember what is most important, then you can stay strong throughout all of that, and you can continue to make an impact in your community, in your area, your school, whatever it may be. And I was telling the priest earlier that I didn't have anything like this in Macon, so I ended up going to the local church there, the Catholic church there, and helping with youth group, because that was what made me feel closest to being a part of something like what this could have been there. I just didn't have that opportunity there. So I think you guys are extremely blessed and extremely lucky to have something like this, and to be able to be involved with it, and don't take it for granted. So I had a great first semester. I go back home, and remember, it was a massive shock, because I had to put my shoes where they belonged again, and I had to hang my clothes up the right way, and I couldn't have stuff thrown all over my dorm room like usual, and the rules were back in place. So it's a little bit of a shocker, but I went back for my second semester, and I remember I was stressing and cramming, not at all studying for a psychology exam the next day, and was worried because at the end of the week, that girl I showed you a picture of earlier, she had a birthday and it was Valentine's Day. So, same day, horrible. And I was trying to prepare myself for the inevitable needing to be amazing. And I went to bed that night, gave up studying, went to bed that night, and started to feel something funky in my arms, like they were asleep or something. I couldn't shake the feeling. I couldn't get rid of what was going on and what I was feeling. So I did what any good freshman would do. I called my mom and said, what do I do? And at the time, I was a first responder, and she said, you mean to tell me you have these certifications and you decide whether people go to the hospital every day or not, and you can't decide yourself whether you should go to the hospital? So I said, okay, valid point, good thing. So I took some medicine, jumped back up in bed, and thought everything would calm down, and then everything lit on fire. So my entire chest was on fire, my arms, my throat, my neck, everything, and it was classic signs and symptoms of a heart attack. And being 18, I thought, there's absolutely no way this is possible. This can't be happening. It has to be something else, stress, I don't know what, but there's no way it's a heart attack. So I wake my roommate up and jump out of bed, and he gets me to the hospital, gets me inside, and I'll never forget because it was such an interesting experience being a college student, I guess. It was, what's your name, Andrew? What's your last name, Morkaiser? Did you do cocaine tonight? Nope, I didn't do any cocaine tonight. Okay, how tall are you? 5'9", hair color, blonde. Did you do cocaine earlier today? No, I did not do cocaine earlier today. And it seemed to be every time a nurse would come in the room, that was the first question out of their mouth. So kids don't do cocaine, it leads to heart attacks apparently. So I started getting further and further into what would be my living hell at the moment. And a doctor walked in, and I have no idea who he is and no idea what his name is. I only saw him once. But he kicked the door open like Arnold Schwarzenegger and was ready to give me some horrible news. So he sat down in the chair and he shook my hand and looked at me and said, Andrew, I'm sorry to tell you this, but we have found enzymes in your bloodstream that lead us to believe that you and your heart are dying. So here we are, 18 years old, 2 hours south of my family, and I was just told that I was dying. And there was no way to recover, no way to come out of it. He stood up from the chair, walked out of the room, and that was the last I ever saw of him. So, of course, my initial response is to blubber and cry hysterically by myself and call my parents and tell them what I had just been told. And as I started to think more clear and have a minute to process things, I started thinking about what or how I wanted to finish out what I had no idea how long, but the rest of my life would be. And it was something where tears and crying and worrying about me wasn't going to solve anything or make anything different or make anything better for me. And ended up turning on the TV, and I don't know, I can't believe I have to say this now, but I feel like you might be too young. God, I'm getting so old. But I turned on the TV, and Ron White, comedian, was playing. He's one of my favorites. And it kind of helped me calm down and reset a little bit and start thinking about what was next. And I ended up finding out by accident that I wasn't going to die that day. Later on, a nurse had told me that, nope, doesn't look like you're dying today. That's how I found out. So quickly transferred to Atlanta and started getting through more diagnostic and more tests. And what they had diagnosed me with at that point was something called myocarditis. So what myocarditis is, which is interesting because now it's popping up a lot with corona going on. But it is a virus that you get like any other virus, and it embeds itself in your heart, and your body doesn't know the difference between a virus and the heart. So it attacks your entire heart as if it were the virus itself. And that leads to basically a full-on heart attack. And a lot of pain and a lot of interesting differences in what you would expect, especially being an 18-year-old. So after that, I got back home and then was able to get back to school, and I really took on living life to the fullest to a whole new meaning. I was doing everything. I got my EMT license, volunteer firefighter, got a search and, well, I thought it was going to be a search and rescue dog. Turned out to be the laziest dog I've ever seen in my life. And it became a hotel dog with my wife. It's now her dog. I tried to get my real estate license, tried to get pilot's license. I got my scuba diving license. I mean, it was just like, it was Yes Man, the movie. I was just ripping stuff off the wall. Like, I'll do it. Yep, I'll do it. Sure. Okay, cool. And just kept going and going as far as I could. And it got to the point where started to realize that at that time, the relationship that I was in, which was a long one, had become a one-way street. And I don't mean this in a selfish way of having to have reciprocation and having to be involved in something that's important and going both ways. But I kind of like to think of something like that as more of a roundabout in a sense, where God's involved and you have those conversations and you have that ability to be a part of. Mic change. So it got to the point where I realized that it wasn't the best for me, that I couldn't have a bad day. I couldn't rely on someone else to bring me back up. And then more importantly, continually, whenever the talk would come up about Catholicism or what our kids would come up in or what faith we wanted to practice, it was always just kind of dead-ended and then veered off to the left or the right. And it was never something that was covered. So I realized that it was just something that never was going to work out in the way that I would hope that it would. And so I kind of got to the decision and the realization that it wasn't right. And I didn't think it was ever going to work out to be right. And I didn't want to put myself in that situation continually to where I would be let down or have to make a choice between a relationship and God. And so I started to jump into EMS. And that was truly my first true love. And working on the ambulance in Macon was the most incredible experience I've ever been through. It is the best job in the world. Being with someone on their worst day, and we say pretending like we know what we're doing every day and that we've seen it 1,000 times, but being with someone on their worst day and being able to give them support and work them through, and the word that you hear a lot on the back of the truck is God. And a lot of times, often it was their last attempt to reach out, and they would have many more times before that. But I fell in love with it because it gave me the opportunity to give back and serve my community, and it gave me something to be proud of, and in a sense to really kind of restart what I consider a relationship to be, and helped out a ton with resetting my life. And so something I always like to focus on is, right now is the youngest you'll ever be. So in essence, if there's something that you've been thinking about doing, or someone you've been thinking about asking out, whatever it may be, if there's something in your life that you've been leaning towards or looking at, now's the time. And something someone once said to me I loved, it was, if you're having a hard time deciding something, close your eyes and think about if you were an 80-year-old person. Would you at some point say, I wish I had done that, I wish I had given that thing a chance, I wish I had thought a little bit more about that? And if it is, you get to open your eyes back up, and you're that age right then and there. You're still young, and you can still attack it, and you can still make that change or make that difference or make whatever impact you want to make. And so through the spirit of living life to the fullest, I was still going all out and decided I would sign up to go to Australia for 6 weeks. It was something I wanted to do my entire life. It was a study abroad program, so I had a job, intern job there for 3 or 4 days out of the week, and then I could go do whatever you wanted on the weekend or the long weekend, whatever. So get on the plane, pack up, head out, and I land, and starting to feel exhausted. But I just figured it was a long flight. It is what it is. So we checked into the hotel, and I got 3 roommates, and all the groups are starting to get together, and we're starting to meet each other. And they're all like, we're going to go out tonight. Do you want to come? And I felt exhausted. So it was a horrible first impression, but I was like, I just can't. I have to stay. So I felt like I was getting a fever. So I jumped in the shower, turned the heat all the way up, tried to break the fever, and then jumped back in bed. And then just as I was about to doze off, version 2 of the heart attack stuff came back. So this time I'm in a foreign country. There's no adrenaline to block what was happening, because I knew exactly what was happening. And it was by far one of the most excruciating things I've ever been through. Yet I don't even know what 911 is in Australia at this point. I just got there. I don't know if they take credit cards here. I have no idea what to do. So I stumble downstairs, and I get to the front desk, and I'm like hunched over, and he's like, are you okay? I said, yep. Can you call me a taxi? And he said, where to? I said, a hospital. And he said, okay. Yep. So we called the taxi. The taxi shows up. I waddle out to the taxi. I get in the seat, and he's like, where are you going? I said, Have you or anyone you know ever wished that they were at a different hospital because they had a heart-related issue? He was like, oh, yeah, St. Vincent's. I said, great, that's the one. Take me to St. Vincent's. And so that is how I got to the hospital that night, via taxi. And after we got through the whole preliminary assessment of everything, started working through all the tests, and long story short, it ended up being, I was getting diagnosed with myocarditis again. The difference is that in 95 to 99% of the cases that get myocarditis a second time, it means that it's large cell myocarditis. So this means that it's embedded itself in the heart for good. It's never going to leave. And the only answer is you either wait it out and your heart will die from heart failure, or you have to get a transplant. So we were then starting the process of getting on the transplant list in Australia or in the US. I had to make that decision. Of course, was more comfortable with coming back to the US. So started the process of planning on how that would be feasible and how that would work. And they were trying to talk me into a biopsy. And I was very against it because they cut you open right here, stick a tube down and a cross into your chest, and pull little pieces of your heart off. And the whole time you're awake, so it's really cool. So I was like, nope, not happening. My dad got there, he's like, you doing it? I was like, God, okay. So I did it. Went in, I still to this day swear it was a storage closet. One of the doctors looked at the other one and asked him which of the 3 machines was working. So that was cool. And then started the procedure, and I literally must have looked like I crapped my pants because the nurse grabbed both of my hands, not just one. So I get through that, and of course the prayer chains in the church and everything are fired up back home, and I'm getting, people are reaching out, and friends and family, and it's this weird sense and of knowing that things somehow knowing that things are going to be okay, and I can't explain it, and I don't know how to explain it, and you see your life flash before your eyes, that all is true, and it happened, but I can't explain knowing that it was okay. But the fundamental difference this time was the first time I was comfortable. I had the conversation with myself that I was comfortable, I was okay with going, it was okay that maybe it was my time. But this time I didn't have that sense of calm, I didn't have that sense of relaxation. I felt like I was missing something. And so as I progressed through the rest of the testing and they finally got the results back, by some chance, it was not large cell myocarditis. I had just contracted a separate strand of the virus and had regular myocarditis again, which was basically my miniature miracle. And it's not, cancer disappearing or anything like that, but it was enough for me to look into my life and start to realize that maybe something had to be restructured again. And so at the end of our conversation with the doctor, he basically said, I highly recommend you stay here for a little while before you fly back. And of course I was very up for that, wanting to stay in Australia and at least enjoy the place other than the hospital. So I stayed for the rest of the 5 weeks, and let me tell you, 5 stars. I was in the hospital for a week, and I still recommend going there. So if you have the chance, definitely take it. If it was where Canada was, I would move there. It is an incredible place. Spooned a kangaroo, and did the whole 9. Bungee jumped. Still was living life on the edge, and enjoying it very much. So what I started to realize on my flight back and getting back home and back with family was why I felt the way that I did in the hospital. And it was because I was forgetting the small things. And something I think later on you'll discuss too is, tomorrow, what if you woke up with only the things that you were thankful for today? What would that be? And, for me, sometimes, like on a day like today, I better make sure I'm thankful for my wife, otherwise I'll just have Cane's chicken tomorrow for the rest of it. So that is not enough. So you have to take those things into consideration when you're going through different changes and different stages in your life. I realized that I used to be the kid who would sit on the roof or sit out in the driveway and look at the stars, or go for a long drive for no reason, or hang out with friends around a bonfire, go to church, be involved in what was going on with youth group and all sorts of different things in my life. And I realized I missed those completely. I was so focused on doing the next thing, getting the next license or achievement or certificate or whatever, that I had completely let go and lost sight of the important things and the small things in life. The relationships that I had worked so hard to build, and how close I was with my family, how close I was with the church. I had lost sight of all of that. And nothing at that time in my life had hurt as much as that did, and the realization of that. So I started to realize that throughout all of this time and getting towards the end of my college career, that the dating that I was doing and the things that I was looking for weren't lining up the way that I wanted them to. And I was getting frustrated because it was time after time. It would be a great time or whatever it may be, but any discussions that maybe would be important for later on in life after marriage or during marriage, whatever it may be, they kept hitting a wall. And I was getting very frustrated with it to the point where I'll never forget, I was sitting on the couch with a few buddies of mine, and I just said, I'm done. I give up. I keep trying to force this to work. I keep trying to force finding the right girl and finding the right person to spend the rest of my life with, and it's just not working. It's not happening. I'm done. I give up. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. It'll come to me, and I'm not going to just hide in my house all day, but something for sure has to work out, and I'm not exaggerating. 5 minutes later, my now wife messaged me on Facebook. She hates this part because I have a screenshot of it, but I messaged her almost exactly a month prior to the day, how are you? Took her a month, 30 days, to respond, I'm great, how are you? So clearly she was, and I always say it like this, was at a very bad place in her life to where she had to resort to me as her last resort for a date or something. So my response was no greater than 30 seconds later that said, I'm wonderful, can I take you to dinner? And it was as simple as that, because I had just had this conversation with my friends, and I had just had this thought process of, look, if it's going to come, it's going to come. And I think at some point, yes, you need to look, and yes, you need to be open to experiencing life and being out there. But I think at some point, your plan is your plan. And as much as you want to create it and craft it, it's already there. And there's not much you can do to change it, and there's not much you can do to make it anything other than what it's going to be. So at some point, you have to let go of the wheel and let them drive for just a little while at least. So she's the one. Fall in love, fall madly in love, and we go get engaged. It was magical. Yes, there was fireworks. It was very difficult, but of course I did it. I pulled it off. And then we get married, and it was, at that point, the best day of my life. So then I go and get a new job, and it was out of nowhere. I was working for a company making my way up, and I get an offer to go run a company based out of the UK. So I am literally on cloud nine. I am at the top of what I feel like is where I'll ever be in my life. I mean, to be young and to be running a company, and then that's not mine, and to have the wife figured out, and to have the perfect chocolate lab at home, and to have all of this stuff figured out, I felt like it was perfect. And the next step then is obviously having a kid, right? So we start trying. My wife gets very frustrated because it's taking a while. And I keep just telling her it's just part of the plan. It's part of she doesn't want to hear any of it. She's a very impatient woman. She's Italian. And so I keep just telling her, just relax, just be calm. And then one day, we get pregnant. And it was still one of the happiest days of my life again. And I think that's a theme you'll notice with me especially, is just it keeps somehow getting better and better and being the new happiest day. But we were so excited, we were thrilled, we found out it was going to be a boy. So we're going through everything. We're doing all the appointments. I'm trying to be there as much as I can. I mean, I'm literally like, I refuse to miss an appointment. She's like, you don't need to be here. I'm like, yes, I do. And we keep going through all the motions of everything we're supposed to be doing. And I remember we were on the way to one appointment, and we got into a little argument, nothing serious, but like I said, she's Italian, so it happens. And we pull up, and we get out of the car, and we walk inside, and we're like, it's just gonna be another day, and we'll figure that out later. And we sit down in the room, and the tech comes in and starts to do an ultrasound. And I will never forget those words. I'm sorry, but there's no heartbeat. And still to this day, I don't think I will experience anything more painful, and I hope to God I will not outlive my wife. But by far, the worst thing that I have ever experienced, and probably and hopefully ever will experience. Because when you want something so bad and you think your life is going so perfect and so well, and then it's gone in an instant. And then you had to go forward and act like you were going through the same motions of delivering the child. and we had to go together, and I had to be there for her, and feeling so worthless, and remembering everything that we had built our relationship on, and trying to be there, and trying to be the man that I always promised her I would be, but there was nothing I could do. And going into a hospital where you think you're going to deliver your son one day, and you're not, is an incredible and horrible pain that I never wish upon anyone. And so I got to meet my son, who's now named Malachi, which I think is a pretty cool name, if you ask me. And I was able to baptize him as soon as we met him. And my childhood priest, who's now Monsignor Frank in Atlanta, came and baptized him as well, and prayed over us and him. And that's when we chose the name. And, as hard as it is, and as impossible as it may seem to get through something like that, I still somehow find the advantage and the light in that I have someone that's up there. And, one day, and I'm terrified of death. I've always been open about that. But the thought of maybe one day meeting my first son is what keeps me going, and what keeps me yearning for heaven and for what we're promised if we do right. And so as we got back home and I mean, literally sat on the couch for a week just trying to recover and recuperate from this, I had brought up a point of, and I had done speaking like this for a little while after I had my heart episodes, and I had come up with something back then that I think is crucial in life, and it's, you have the chance, you have the opportunity to be a story or statistic. It's completely up to you. And everything you do, no matter how big, no matter how small, failing a class, failing a test, doing something great, doing something horrible, no matter how big or how small, you have the opportunity in your life to be a story. Or you can just be another number. And so what we decided was that we didn't know that this was something that was very common. It happened all the time. People had to go through this, and they never talked about it. They never shared the pain with someone else to get through it and to fight through it together. So we realized that we wanted to share our story, and we did. And the response that we got and the number of people that had gone through something like this was incredible. So, I say all of this to say that you have the opportunity every day to make that decision. And again, I cannot stress how small you may think it is. It may be something massive to someone else. And if you have the opportunity and the capability to help them get through that, then that is more power than I think any of you would ever realize you could have. So that is my little spiel on that side of life. So we went about a year, and then found out that we were pregnant again. And this little guy, baby Haig, came into my life, and I officially met my second son, who is slightly cute, just a little bit. Sorry, one more, and then just a little extra gift for you with the eyebrows, bam. So it happened. I mean, it became a reality. Everything I wanted was within reach. And the two dogs now, and oh my gosh, my wife can't stand the new puppy. Oh. But the reality of bringing all of that together and getting that gift that I wanted for so long, and having a son here on earth, and still holding and remembering my son up in heaven is something that is so incredible. And I get to see what he may have been like every day, and keep thinking about that. And when you look at a relationship in general and marriage in general, you have to realize that kind of stuff is going to happen. The good, the bad, and the ugly is going to happen. There is no easy marriage. There is no easy relationship. It's impossible. And if it is not possible, then you should probably talk to me afterwards and tell me how you do it, because it would help a lot. But it's something where, my final advice is this, and it was something a priest said to us at our wedding, and it stuck with me for a very long time. So what he said was, your job is very simple in your relationship, in your marriage, whatever it may be, even your friendships, but especially your relationships and your marriage, you have to be open, you have to be honest, and you have to talk about things. You have to figure out what path is right for you all. You have to figure out those hard conversations for later on, whether it be money, but especially faith. You have to have those conversations. And at some point, I'm not saying on date one, okay? I'm not telling you to go have these conversations immediately, but you need to get to the point where you figure out, is this right for me? Is this my plan? Am I on the right path here? Am I doing the right thing to fulfill the rest of my life and what my plan should be? And so that priest made it very clear. He said, your goal and your job, your mission in marriage and in your relationships to your significant other is to get that person to heaven. So every single day, you should be focused on getting each other to heaven. Because what is the point of falling in love with someone and being married to them forever if you cannot spend eternity with them? So that was something that sunk in with me very deep, and it is not an easy task. It's not something that I'm good at. It is not something that I claim to be good at, but it is something that is very crucial for a powerful and successful relationship in marriage. And I think it's a great way to think about things, because if you can have that open conversation with yourself and your significant other at some point, then it can always keep you focused on the goal and what's ahead. So I like this one. Lady advice, I don't really have it because I'm a man, but make a man laugh, you have his attention. Make a man bring his heart closer to God, you'll have him forever, and not even the devil himself can pull you apart. So, I don't know, sounds pretty good to me. Men, change your address and her last name, and the way she thinks about men. It's pretty simple. And again, like I said earlier, let go. And when you decide to invest into a relationship and to invest into something bigger than yourself and to be in a relationship, include God and love fiercely. Love all out. And never forget the small things. And one last story I'll tell you was from my life on the ambulance. It was from an instructor of mine. He had a call one day to take home a cancer patient from the hospital to finish out the rest of his days at his house with his family, and to finish out the rest of his life. So he goes to pick him up, and as he's putting him in the back of the truck, the guy asks him, "Are you happy with your life?" And the instructor says, "Yes, I'm very happy with my life. Got a great job. I love what I do. I give back. It's a blessing." He said, "If there was two things I could go back and do, I would do them in a heartbeat." So naturally, he's like, "Well, what is it? Tell me." He says, "I would go back and finish my college degree, and I would go and look at my plane one more time." And so he kind of was confused by it and said, "What do you mean plane?" And he was one of the original Tuskegee Airmen that fought for our country. And he wanted to see the plane that he spent so much of his life in growing up. So as it was, there happened to be a plane not too far from there on top of a restaurant, which is a silly place, to go show him a plane, but it was that exact plane that not the exact one, but the exact model plane that he flew in. So he radioed into dispatch and told him he had a flat tire. Of course, they asked if they wanted to send another unit to carry the patient. He said, no, it'll be quick, but just delay us on the call. So he drives him out to this restaurant and opens the back doors and pulls him out of the back, and he begins to cry. And as the sun set over the tail of the airplane, he passed away. And I don't think there is a better example of remembering the small things and how important it is to focus on them, because it was enough. It was enough for him to be satisfied enough with his life. That one little thing. So think about how powerful that could be in a relationship, or something even bigger than just a plane that he flew in. Just that one tiny little thing for him. So when you came into this world, you were crying, screaming your head off. You had a few people standing around you, smiling. When you leave this earth, make sure that you have lived your life so that there are tons and tons of people around you crying, and you were looking down upon them smiling. So, bow your heads, and we'll finish in prayer. As we have learned, unless we eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, we have no life in him. Help us understand that love isn't love until you give it away, and that the will of God will never take us, where the grace of God will not protect us. Please guide these individuals to be the best human beings they can be, and bring them the relationships they need, as they need them. Watch over us all. Take care of my little guy in heaven for me. And thank you so much for everything you have given us. And never let us take the small things for granted. Amen. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you so much. That was a beautiful talk.
Alrighty, now we'll be breaking out into small groups in just a second. Oh, was this even on? I know we had a few new people tonight, so if that is you, please come see me and we will put you in a small group. Any other announcements?
I think that's it. So we will start dismissing y'all.